The following podcast contains a real testimony from an individual who suffers from depression. There are detailed, graphic, and emotional stories relating to depression and suicide. If you are in crisis, this content may not be right for you, but please reach out for help by calling the Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or contact the text line by texting 741-741. And feel free to message the Drafty Dames on our Twitter at Drafty Dames. Welcome back to Drafty Dames. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Sara.
And today we are here with our special guest, Cory.
Hello.
And Cory is Sara's hubby.
Yes.
Hi.
So today, last week we talked about Sara and I's mental health and how we deal with it and what are some of the symptoms that you have depression or anxiety. So today we are going to talk to Cory because boys have feelings too.
That's right.
For further context, I also have my own show on our network that you may know me from, Drafty Tunes.
There's that.
So, listen to my show too.
Had to plug it. Yeah. So Cory has an anime show. So
But we're not here to talk about that.
If you're into cartoons, or listen to Cory's show.
Yeah.
So Cory has not been on our show yet, right?
I think I was on the Pride, but I don't know if that one released.
No, it did.
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think we asked you the big three, did we?
No.
Okay.
No, we didn't.
So we gonna do that now since this is your show today and not just us blabbing
Yeah.
about random shit.
Yeah.
So Sara, go ahead and ask.
What is your most toxic trait?
Honestly, it's probably the reason we're here today is my depression. It leads into a lot of negative thoughts and a lot of toxicity in my life. I think that's been one of the leading causes of it, honestly.
Agreed. What is your favorite mythical creature?
So I thought about this one because I knew this question was coming.
You knew this was happening?
Yeah, I did some research and I was like, I got to come up with something original. Like I even broke out a D&D monster manual and was trying to find mythical creatures and find something that was original.
Mm-hmm.
And I just came back to dragon. I'm going to be a basic bitch.
Yeah.
We like PSL and dragon in our house.
I was like, mine's a mermaid. I feel like that's way more basic. Or a unicorn. But
yeah,
dragon's up there with the basic bitches.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find anything that was super cool. I just kept coming back to dragons because I always liked dragons and everything.
Everyone said dragon.
Yeah.
And ever since I was a kid, that's always been a thing I liked. I remember going into the tattoo shops with my mom as a young kid and looking at the drawings of dragons and be like, Mom, I want a dragon tattoo. And she's like, no, you can't have a dragon tattoo. You're 8 years old.
Going from the neck to the foot.
Yeah.
It was going to be a huge arm piece too.
Yeah.
You can do it now. You're an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to get a dragon tattoo.
I am. I really want one.
He'll just live vicariously through you.
Honestly, that's everything. Yeah. Okay. So 1 hour with a person living or dead, famous or not, who would it be? Who you talking to?
Oh. So there's a few people that come to mind.
Okay.
Number one at that list would probably be Mr. Rogers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'd really want to talk to him
Okay.
because I watched his documentary recently about his life.
I wanted to watch that.
It's really good. I highly recommend it. And from everything I've seen about him, he was every bit the person he was on camera, off camera too. Mm-hmm. That was just who he was as a person.
That's always refreshing.
And I would like to get to know that person and see if I can't have a little bit of that rub off on me.
Positivity and love.
Another second would probably be Bob Ross.
Oh, hell yeah.
He preaches that same message too. Also, Robin Williams would be up there too.
I was thinking Robin Williams too. Yeah, just really positive people.
Those are the top 3 he
Yes.
always mentions. So,
Surround yourself with those kind of people.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, especially just because of how he died. And, like,
Yeah.
I feel like there towards the end, we could probably relate a lot, especially with, like, my depression and then everything he was dealing with. And I just feel like there would be a lot of common ground there. But I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to at least talk to him and see what all was going on.
So here's my thinking on this question. Are they, like, do they know how they died and stuff like that? In my world, I'm thinking that they do. So, like, would
So,
you
like, you're
ask
talking
him
to the
if,
ghost, like
Yeah.
a seance setting.
Yeah,
This
like,
is how you talk to this
would you
person.
ask him if he regretted it type of thing? Like, that's my thinking.
Maybe. I don't know. The one thing I would have to say on that is I have seen a lot of videos and interviews with people that have tried to kill themselves, and without fail, every single one of them regretted it.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. I bet I just chalk up every suicide as they would have probably regretted it.
Yeah,
if they,
especially like the dude from the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
That's what the
That
biggest
one
one
fucked me
was. He
up.
said the moment his feet left the bridge and he was free falling in air, he instantly regretted it. And it was a miracle that he even survived.
Yeah.
He said that they fished dead bodies out of that river all the time, and it was just a miracle that he happened to survive.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine, like, if I did it, I'd have to go quick because I couldn't imagine falling and being
Thinking
like, oh,
about it?
fuck, why
Yeah.
did I do this? And then just dying.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Spooky.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to think that if they wouldn't have died, they would have regretted it. But then you have the people that don't really regret, like, trying. Like, they try again.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, they'll do it quite
Like
a
some
few
people
times.
are dead set on doing it. No
Yeah.
pun
And
intended.
I think some of that, so to get into like a little bit of the disease talk and stuff, I think some of that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't regret it when they did it. It's just they got back to the place where they were when
that
they
they
attempted
wanted
it.
to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so much that
That
they
makes sense.
don't regret it or want to die. They're just back in that place where it's
Yeah.
almost a
It's-
preferable preference to.
They'd rather feel nothing than pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I hear-
makes sense.
I hear that a lot.
Thank you for that point of view.
Yes. I do like that.
Because, yeah, I was always like, well, why'd you do it? Why'd you try so many times?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
when people are, like, past that and they're like, oh, my gosh, you know, I tried to kill myself 4 times and it never worked. I'm meant to be here. I'm like, well, then why'd you try 4 times?
Yeah. Like, why didn't you
But
learn that the first time you
That
didn't
explains
go
it,
through
that,
with
you
it?
know.
Also,
They're like, oh, man, I can't believe I even did that. And then a few years down the road, they're in that spot again where they want to do it.
Yeah.
again.
one of the things that I think is important to know is the manner in which they decide to do it. So, like, my thing was when I was really suicidal, I was going to crash my car. I was just going to run my car off the road into the tree as fast as I could. But with that, I was going to keep my seatbelt on. You know, it was always that caveat of I might survive.
Yeah, and it's like they will try to make it less permanent, like
Yeah.
overdosing. You have a small chance, and this, you have a small chance, but like a gun or jumping off a bridge, that
There's-
chance shrinks significantly.
Yeah, there are definitely more permanent methods, but
Yeah.
there's always going to be some people that are like, there's still that sliver of hope left
Yeah.
in them that maybe I'll survive and I'll get the help I need.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I think there is something to be said about the way they do it.
Yeah.
Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah.
It's depressing as hell.
Yeah.
Well, we are talking about depression.
I know.
Okay. So, one of my first questions is, what gives you the courage to talk about your mental health?
I think the biggest thing is there's a lot of stigma around it. And it's a fairly recent diagnosis for me. And I feel like if it was more talked about and people were more open about it, it might not have been quite so recent that I would have been diagnosed with it, and I might not have gotten to the point I did and gotten as bad as I did. So if people talked about it and opened up about it more, then other people could relate and then be like, oh yeah, I also have these same issues. Maybe I should get some help before something bad happens.
Yeah.
So like the big wake up call for me that, oh shit, I might have depression, was I got into this hole on Facebook where I was like following and liking and like reading all of these like depression memes almost, and people talking about like, I have depression and this is how I feel, or like my depressed ass is doing this, and it's like I would read it
same,
I'd be like, yeah, I wish I had depression because I relate to that. And then it like
At least
finally
it would give
dawned
you an
on
answer
me
to why you feel the way you do.
Yeah, it finally dawned on me like, hey, dumbass, you probably do have depression. Maybe you should go see a doctor about it, because like it was literally
you're relating to these too often.
a daily occurrence. I would see one of these things and I would relate to it, and I would be like, yeah, I understand that completely. And then it's like, oh, like it definitely was just like a click one day that it's like, I should get help. Especially when like the suicidal thoughts started coming in hard and heavy and more often.
See, and so like, I guess my next question is, and I know you as a person, so I know you're not a very prideful, like anti-hospital kind of guy, but I know a lot of men are, and they would rather ignore it than know that there's something wrong. How do you swallow the pill that you need to go get help and not let it like hurt your pride, or feel like Sarah was saying, like a failure, or feel bad about yourself more than you already do? So
like a lot of that I think stems from like toxic masculinity, like this culture that like men have to be big and men have to be manly, and you got to be a man's man, and like that's just dumb. Like you should try to distance yourself from that culture as much as possible and just like the things you like and be who you want to be. That's what I said. I know you're not one of those guys. I'm not that way.
I didn't know if you had any advice on that, because I know you're not that way, but I know a lot of people that are.
If you're trying to get past that, then you just need to accept that and move past it. Like it's not something to be ashamed of. And like it took me a while to get to that point. Like I wasn't always like this. It definitely took some time and some inner thought and some turmoil to realize that like, no, that's all bullshit. Like I should be able to do whatever I want whenever I want. What makes me happy should just make me happy. And I shouldn't have to feel ashamed for it. Or, what makes me sad, I shouldn't have to be ashamed for that either. So like it's just trying to get past that shame. Not even necessarily the shame that other people are putting on you, but just that shame that you're like putting on yourself. Whether it's justified or not, because it's probably not.
And let me just say, we'd rather you go get help than not be here, just for the general audience out here.
I mean,
like,
honestly,
it's really not that big of a deal, especially these days when people are being so open about it. Like talking to someone for a few hours a week's not worth never being around for your wedding or kids being born or anything like that. Like, that's dumb. Just
now,
see
unfortunately, there's still like there's an evil side to all this. There is like a dark underbelly to like going and seeking help. So I guess the one story I have is when I did go to get help.
Oh shit!
I went and talked to my doctor and said, "Hey, I'm having suicidal thoughts," and I told him exactly what I was experiencing, exactly what I was feeling. And the doctor said he was scared for me. He was scared about me. And he wanted me to go to the ER. He wanted me to go to the hospital that night, right as soon as I left his doctor's office, to go get help.
Why couldn't he just help you there?
He was a new doctor.
He was new, and he didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
And he didn't want to have my blood on his hands.
Pretty
if
much,
I left and killed myself, he didn't want to feel responsible. And that started this spiral of I went to the ER, sat in a padded room for what, 8 hours?
Oh my gosh.
Because we got there at 6 roughly, and we didn't get to leave till after midnight.
It was like 2:00 before you were transferred.
Yeah, and we just sat in this. It was this locked room, and the only thing in the room was a bed and a couple chairs. Like, they wheeled out all the other equipment, and it, like, I understand why the room existed. It was to keep me from hurting myself. But at this point in time, I wasn't trying to actively hurt myself.
You just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
That
I just
you
wanted to
sometimes
talk
do.
about it. That,
Yeah.
like, hey, this happens, you know? So they put me in this room.
Oh my God.
And I sat in this room, and it was literally just Sarah and I in this room for 8 hours. Nobody else came in to check on us. Occasionally, a nurse would be like, hey, you guys doing okay? We're like, yeah, I guess we're just waiting for people to come in and do something because we're just sitting in here.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, it'll be a little bit longer, and then the doctor will come in and talk to you or whatever. And the way my first doctor described it was I would go to the ER, I would get admitted to the hospital, and then I'd get to talk to somebody. I'd get to talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they would potentially prescribe me medication.
Pretty
or
much
they
it
would
was
talk
just
to me.
a setup for a better future. Like,
Yeah.
get him hooked up with who he needed to talk to,
Yeah.
because that's not something that's openly and readily available to most people.
Yeah,
Like, we don't
'cause
know
I had
who
no idea where to
counselors are.
start.
Yeah.
And this was the starting point, according to my first doctor. So we go to the ER, and we're there for 8 hours, and eventually they come in, and we're like, okay, well, we're going to transfer you to this other place, and that's where you'll get help.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay.
You're like, can I just go home?
Honestly,
I mean,
that's
at
what
this point, I
we
was
were-
tired, but and I wanted to go home. But it's like, well, if this is what I got to do to get help, then this is what I got to do. This is what everybody is telling me is what's best for me. I should just listen to them and go along with it. So they end up taking me to this other hospital. In this other hospital, they take me over through via ambulance. Sarah follows in the car behind. And I was fine in the ambulance. We get to the hospital. They walk me up to what turned out to be the psych ward. And they take me past these doors, and they lock behind me, and then they start explaining to me what's going to happen. And, like, I had my bag with me and stuff, and it was like, all right, they're like, all right, well, take your shoes off, take your belt off, anything you could potentially hurt yourself with, we're going to take that, and they're going to lock it up and take it away from me. And then I was like, all right, I guess I understand this. You know, this is why I'm here, is because I could potentially hurt myself. I understand you taking, like, you know, my shoes and my belt and all that. And then the nurse I had to deal with was just awful. She was horrendous. And she's, like, not showing me any sympathy at all. And it's this whole process of, this is what happens when you tell people you're going to kill yourself.
That's literally what she kept telling him.
She told me that multiple times. And I was like, okay, I don't want to be here. I don't feel safe. I do not feel safe in this hospital. And she's like, you can't leave. You are here until you get evaluated. And I said, I do not feel safe here. I want to leave. And she said, too bad.
Yeah, I'd just buy new clothes and leave.
Yeah.
And I couldn't leave. I was literally locked in the psych ward.
But that's another thing that pissed us off, because the hospital kept saying you can willingly check yourself in after you get to the facility. Once you get to the facility and look around, you have the option to say no.
Yeah, but
That's what they
didn't.
told
The
us
first
the
hospital
whole time.
told me that, yeah. And they're like, if you don't like it there, you can always leave. So I decided, okay, I'm going to leave. But when I got there, they're like, no, you can't leave.
Yeah.
You have to stay here.
Yeah.
And then she turned to this point where she was threatening me. She said, if you don't cooperate and do what I say, you're going to be here even longer.
A maximum of 36 hours.
Oh my
She's
God.
like, we can hold you. We can call a sheriff right now and get a sheriff down here, and we can force you to stay as long as we want you to.
I would have been like, call him.
Yeah.
Because I would have told the sheriff
That's
I'm
what
leaving.
I told him. I said, they can't hold you there. There's no...
Yeah, you're
there's
not a
no
criminal.
Yeah, there's...
And
You're
I was
willingly-
tempted, but I was terrified
We
because
didn't
it's
know.
like she kept telling me is like I had to take everything she said at granted.
Yeah, like, you don't
You
know.
know, I have no idea how
Yeah.
this system works. This is supposed to be my introduction into the system.
Yeah.
And she kept telling me, she's like, this is what happens when you tell people you're going to kill yourself. And I'm like, so should I just not tell people if I don't want to end up here?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, no, I didn't say that. But
Literally kept saying it all night long.
And it's like, so what do you want me to do? It's like, you're holding me here against my will. And she's like, well, yeah, well, this is what happens when you tell people you're going to kill yourself. And it's just like, was so frustrating. And it was like I was beating my head against a wall.
Oh
and
my God.
it was just awful and horrendous. And the worst part, the very worst part of it was when they took my phone. She saw I had my phone on me. And my phone was my only connection to Sara. Mm-hmm. And Sara has been like the one lifeline I had through like all of my depression and everything. And I was like texting her what was going on because they wouldn't allow her up in the psych ward. And it was this whole thing.
That's what broke me is I couldn't even tell him goodnight. I had no way of knowing what was happening. I could walk up, hand him his bag. Like there was I couldn't give him a kiss goodnight, anything.
Yeah. And like I was stuck there. So I was like texting her and I just assumed I could have my phone on me. Like, how am I going to hurt myself with my phone?
Yeah.
And she's like, you can't have that. We're taking that. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not taking my phone? And she's like, no, we're taking it or I'm going to call the sheriff. And then it was that whole thing all over again.
Yeah.
So
I would have told her to call. Like,
and then eventually it got to the point where Sarah's like, well, then you call the cops. And I was like, I'm going to call the cops. And the nurse saw that Sara sent me a text saying to call the cops. And the nurse laughed at me.
Yeah.
And she's like, go ahead. That's who we were going to call. She's like, go ahead, call the cops. They will make you stay here too. And I'm like, I guess I don't know what to do. So it was at that point I decided, because she said the earliest I could talk to a doctor and leave would be the next morning. Mm-hmm. So I decided at that point in time that I am going to do and say whatever it is I have to do to get out of there. Mm-hmm. Even if I have to lie through my teeth, I am getting out of that hospital.
Yep.
And like I had to stay there overnight because it was like 2:00 when we got there. Mm-hmm. But the earliest the doctor got there was like 10.
oh God.
No, they were there. She started their rounds at 8 because I was sitting in the parking lot by 6. Called up there to see when you could be released, and she said group doesn't start until I think 8:00, and then you could be released. But she says I'm not even going to promise you that he can be released.
Yeah.
And like shitty to me on the phone.
Yeah, she was awful. Like literally the worst person I've ever met in my entire life.
And, like, we get it. You become desensitized to this stuff. Like, nurses don't cry at deaths and stuff. Like, we get it. You become hard. But, like, something like that, I feel like you have to have a little bit of a heart. Yeah. Or,
and, like, the problem was...
Jesus.
Like, I'm in this position because I'm in a crisis situation. And she's not helping me to resolve my crisis. Mm-hmm. She was making it worse. Mm-hmm. And it was this whole thing I had to deal with. And I know this is way off topic from your questions, but it's definitely a story I wanted to tell. And it was this whole thing I had to deal with while I was there, and it was awful and it was horrendous. And then I ended up talking to other nurses after she left. And everybody else there was super nice, super
just those night shifters, man.
Yeah. It was this one nurse in particular that ruined the whole experience for me.
He didn't even mention names and told, like, the director of that wing, and she's like, oh, nurse so-and-so. And Cory's like, yep. So
and she's like, yeah, we've had problems with her before. I'm like, honestly, is like the experience that she gave me, I would rather kill myself than be back here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, she was awful. And she made me want to kill myself rather than be in that hospital. Like, I was literally plotting ways to escape, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And it was just this awful, horrendous experience for this place that was supposed to be
helpful,
soothing and helpful and relaxing, and it was supposed to help me get past and get over my troubles, and it ended up making everything way worse.
Yeah, it all kind of sounds like it was just a big miscommunication too, because from the very first doctor, they had you on way too much of extremes.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know where they thought,
but it was that because of that
you had a knife to your throat, right? Walking in the hospital, you know, like.
So it's because of that I've been somewhat afraid to tell certain professionals about stuff. And like the perfect way I've seen it explained online was, I need to tell my therapist this, but how do I tell them enough so that I can get help, but not so much so that I get committed?
Yeah.
It's like I need to tell them my thoughts, but if I tell them my exact thoughts and
they're gonna be like, you're crazy.
I'm gonna get committed. And it's like ever since I saw that, I'm like, yeah, no, that's exactly what I had to deal with. it's like I wasn't at that level, but I had these like very extreme thoughts and emotions sometimes. Not all the time, not even at that moment when I was
Going through all that crap.
talking to the doctor. But because of that, it made things difficult.
So maybe you told too much.
Yeah. Which I want to stress the fact that like that doesn't, just because I had a bad experience doesn't mean you shouldn't seek help.
Yes.
Because like I'm still very eager to get back into therapy.
I was going to say I'd probably start with a therapist
Yeah.
instead of like your normal doctor, because it seems like
They
not
literally
gonna
are just
understand.
a stepping stone
Yeah.
for you. They tell you
they're
you're
going to go to an extreme thinking you're killing yourself, but a therapist is like, oh, it's normal to have those thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I would probably find a therapist first.
And after I went through all that, I did find a therapist.
Okay,
And
that
I
was my
talked
next
to
question.
a therapist for like 6 months. And the therapist, she was good while I talked to her, but even she had her limits.
She was a short term, like day to day situation, not like fucked up childhood
Someone
situation.
you can talk to for 20 years.
Yeah. So like my biggest problem with that therapist was she kept telling me to go out and exercise and like, hey, go do this and that'll help you feel better. And it's like, okay, that's fine, but I really want to unpack all these deep-seated issues that I have. And I want to get to the source of all this so I can figure it out and understand it and then process it the way I need to process it, not just slap a Band-Aid on it and hope I'm good for the day.
You're right. That's how it should be. You should be able to go back to your previous traumas and fix them.
But she wanted to be like, well, go out and run a mile and you'll feel great.
So, I mean, I don't know the difference. I wonder if a psychiatrist is more
They are.
Maybe.
the unpacking.
And from what I've done, a lot of it is you just got to find the right therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
You
from
gotta
what
vibe
I've-
with them and be
what
able to
I've
talk
seen
to 'em.
online is sometimes you'll have to go through 6 or 7 different therapists before you find
It's
the
just
right
like
one.
medication, unfortunately. Like
Yeah.
you have to guinea pig a lot.
And that was just the first one I went and saw, and she did help me. She helped me a lot actually, but it got to a point where we literally kept saying the same things over and over to
You were
each
just
other.
going back and forth.
And she was like, I don't know that it's worth your time and money to come back. Like, even the therapist just straight up said that. She's like, maybe we should take a break for a while, and then you can see if you want to come back. And we ended up taking a break, and then I just never went back.
Yeah, she didn't sound very welcoming.
Yeah, which the therapist was nice, and she definitely tried, but I just don't think that she was equipped enough to
Yeah,
handle it.
and I mean, it's kind of nice that she didn't just take your money and she was like, hey, we're not,
Yeah.
our relationship isn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting you come and waste both of your time.
Yeah.
Right.
She was like, hey. So I can kind of respect that.
So it says the most significant difference between a therapist and a psychologist has to be the fact that a psychologist is a trained social scientist, and psychologists usually diagnose mental disorders and work with doctors to determine patient medications, whereas a therapist may not. They're literally just
So-
there to be like a counselor.
Yeah, maybe you do need a psychologist, someone more deep-rooted,
Yeah.
more
And
knowledgeable.
I think I do, but unfortunately that costs money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
And
I totally get
with
that.
my insurance situation now, that's just,
Yeah.
it's going to be a while before I get the actual help that I need.
Healthcare sucks.
Does. Sure does.
It's real bad.
So, with that being said, she did offer up a bunch of ideas to help you get through these dark times. What is something that you do for self-care on your bad days?
She definitely gave me a lot of coping mechanisms, and I've tried a lot of them. I know one of them she gave me was she told me to start writing and basically keeping a journal and a diary. I did that for a while. It helped for about a month, and then it just got to a point where I had a bunch of good days in a row and didn't feel like documenting my good days, and then I never went back to it, even when I had my bad days again. So I still haven't really found a great coping mechanism that works for me. The biggest thing I've been doing is just trying to go easy on myself and surround myself with things that I know make me happy. So like one of the biggest things I do at work when I can feel it starting to come on is I have like a very particular set of podcasts that I listen to. And just listening to those help me get through. And like listening to like these familiar voices, and that helps me a lot.
They just kind of cheer you up.
Yeah, and like I've even caught up completely with that series of podcasts, and I've gone back and started listening to them again because I found that I didn't have that safety net to help me, to help like guide me along. So like I went back so I could have it again, so I could keep listening to it and keep, even though I was I'm hearing stuff that I've already heard before. Just the simple fact that it's there and it's familiar helps. So like another thing I'll do, like there's some days that are really bad and I'll have to just stay home from work because I just can't get out of bed and I can't motivate myself at all. So what I'll end up doing is I'll sit at home, I'll watch some movies or some shows that I regularly watch. One I found myself watching a lot is Coco. The Disney movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I just really like that movie.
It looks like a very happy movie. I haven't watched it.
It's so good. I even like
it's very
it.
colorful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very colorful and there's a lot of music in it.
Yeah.
Ironically, it's about death a lot. But
well, like the Day of the Dead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
De los Muertos.
And about like, like relatives and like preserving memories and like it's very has an uplifting message.
Yeah.
And I found myself watching that like over and over again, even if I've already seen it, and so it's just like finding different movies, different shows, different content to essentially just distract myself from myself. And that's been the biggest thing for me, is just trying to find some sort of escapism to get out of my own head, to get out of the spiral that just keeps wanting to pull me in and pull me down. And it's like, I got to get away from that and experience something else just so I don't think about that long enough to maybe I'll forget about it.
Yeah. And that's actually advice I've given some of my other depressed friends with redirecting. Yeah. Like when they start having the thoughts and I'm like, think about something else. Easier said than done, I know. Yeah. But then I'm like, well, turn on some music that isn't sad. Don't listen to your sad playlist. So I was like, watch a movie, read a book, like get your mind off of your thoughts because they're not real.
Yeah.
Basically,
And sometimes I found that I have to wallow a little bit before I can pull myself out of it.
That's okay.
Sometimes you need the sad playlist to kind of help, get you through it with the rough part of it. But then eventually, like you said, you need to redirect and get to a happy place. Otherwise, you're just going to be wallowing forever.
And I do that sometimes. I mean, I'll be in a sad mood and I'll just make myself more sad, cry it out, and then put on my big girl panties and do something else. But I have to get the tears out first.
Sometimes a good cry helps.
You just got to let it out sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think the important part is then pulling yourself out of it and not being in bed crying for 4 days. Yeah. You got to eventually put on your big girl panties or your big boy panties and kind of
power through.
Yeah, exactly. Power through it. Quick intermission. A word from our partners in the Drafty Quarters Podcast Network.
Hello, wrestling fans. I am Big Smooth.
I am also the D of Squirrels.
We have a wrestling podcast on this network. Perhaps you would like to listen to it.
I could understand why you would. It's very informative and thought-provoking.
After you are done with this podcast, and not before you are done, you should tune in.
Yes, please finish the podcast you are currently listening to, and then add us to your playlist.
Drafty Quarters Productions did not pay us to say this.
We are not held hostage. Cut that out because that's a joke. Thank you for your time.
Have a great day.
And we're back.
So you guys had some more questions for me?
Yes. Do you feel like the internet has had an impact, positive or negative, on your mental health? You kind of touched on that
a little
earlier.
Bit. So I think the positive is it helped me to diagnose myself. It helped me
realize that there was
it helped
a
me
deeper...
realize that I have a problem and I should actually be seeking help. Since then, it's also helped me realize that there are other people out there like me. And it's helped me to kind of, even if not directly connect with people, but just to like read other people's stories of like what they're dealing with and what they're going through and how they cope with it. And like try to help share these experiences with each other without, directly reaching out to each other. Because, like, I read stories all the time about people that are dealing with depression that I don't even know who they are. They're just a username to me.
Yeah.
But just reading about what they're going through and what they're dealing with and how they cope with it, it helps me to deal with my issues, because it, like, I can take their coping mechanisms and adapt them for me, or at the very least, it's like a sympathetic, I'm not the only one,
Yeah.
See, and I'm glad that you can find positivity, because I don't even remember if Sarah and I touched on it, but I think that social media is very negative to my mental health.
Yeah.
So
that's why you took a break for so long.
Yeah. So I like that, you can see the brighter side of it, and that you use it more to relate to people that are like you.
Yeah.
Because I only see the negative, but I'm a very negative person anyway. But yeah, social media just drives me nuts.
I would also note that I have tailored my social media experience to be what I want it to be. Meaning, if something negative comes across my timeline, something I don't like, I will actively make an attempt to, like, if it's on Facebook, I'll be like, hide post. So I don't have to see it anymore. Even if I refresh again, it's no longer there. I don't have to worry about it. Out of sight, out of mind. If there's a person that's constantly posting stuff that I don't agree with, that I know it's not going to do any good to argue with them, I don't want to engage, I will just unfollow them. I might still friend them, but I will unfollow them. And, like,
so you don't have to see their shit.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I'm notorious for, like, friending people and then immediately unfollowing them. Like, my timeline now is like 5 people, and the rest of it is just like news feed and stuff that I like and stuff that I want to see from
Your
like
like
random
pages.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I've definitely tailored that experience for myself, and, like, my social media is very different from what everybody else sees because of that.
I think that maybe I need to do that.
And, like, there is definitely the risk of you put yourself into an echo chamber to where all you see is
Like-minded people.
your own beliefs getting reflected back at you. So
Yeah.
it feels like, well, everybody must feel this way. But that's not necessarily the case. And I do think you need to kind of temper that at least a little bit with some outside perspective. But it's definitely nice to not have to deal with the constant negativity getting thrown at my face.
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
Which is why I had to peace out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it was just too much for me.
Yeah,
I was
it
like, I'm
does.
already very negative, and this is exhausting, and I can't be pissed off all the time like this, because it was like everything
just
I
too
saw
much.
pissed me off. Yeah.
So, what are some triggers, and how do you avoid them?
So my triggers, they've evolved and they've grown with me. I know immediately after leaving the psych ward, I was triggered by ambulances.
Oh God!
Anytime I heard sirens, I would just like immediately like panic, and would like sometimes I'd even just break out in tears because I was afraid they were coming to get me and take me back there.
Yeah.
I've since worked on that and have tried to overcome that. And I definitely been going through that same process with any triggers I do find. Some of my triggers, my more personal triggers, are if I see somebody that I know is toxic to me. So like I have a very bad relationship with my father, and anytime I would even see his name, it would just infuriate me and was just really bad for me. And like since then I've just cut ties completely and like blocked it so I don't even have to deal with that anymore. But like if he would even text me or if I would just see his name pop up on my phone, it would immediately trigger me into like being
Pissed off.
which would lead into the other negative emotions. So I know that was a pretty serious trigger for me. It's still a little bit with some other people that I'm dealing with some like negative emotions with right now. Like other family members and stuff that I'm trying to work through and
Avoid.
yeah, honestly, and it's just a whole thing. But yeah, and I know just like toxic people have definitely been a big trigger, and just trying to avoid toxic people, even if like I recognize that toxic people can be people that claim they love you even. So like that's been one of the biggest things that I've had to kind of learn in recent years, that like toxic people may claim to love you and they might not necessarily mean to be toxic towards you, but that doesn't mean that they're not toxic.
Yeah, sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
But it's also people who can't wrap their head around the whole depression, mental illness thing. Like some
For
people,
me specifically, that's been the case.
like they don't understand it, so they don't know how to cope with it, so they just kind of ignore it and pretend like it doesn't happen. And then when you come to them with it, they're just like, suck it up, pretty much.
Well, I also feel like with our generation, our parents, since it's just now like an open out thing that to them,
good job,
anxiety, anxiety and depression's like very taboo and hush hush. So
for sure.
They don't want to know that their kid's depressed or whatever. But then they're also like, I'm the mom and I'm the dad. What I say goes. If I want to see you, you need to come see me. And it doesn't matter how I treat you while you're here.
Yeah.
Because I gave you life.
Yeah.
And like that right there is toxic, but they don't understand that it's toxic because they made you and they gave you life. So,
which is definitely the thing I had to deal with my mother specifically. Is she had this mentality of, she is my mom, so therefore everything she says is always going to be right in comparison to what I say.
And they can say whatever they want to you.
Yeah.
They can literally like kick you in the face and call you a piece of shit, and it's fine because they gave you life.
Mine never got quite that
No,
bad.
I know. I'm exaggerating a little.
But,
But you know, they can insult your friends, what you do for work, your girlfriend or boyfriend. They can pretty much make you feel 2 inches tall, and they expect you to come back next week for Sunday dinner.
And that's the way,
And
like,
that's not how that should be.
Yeah.
And then they get offended that you don't want to be around them.
exactly.
Yeah. And then I stood up for myself, and then it became an issue, and I was the problem
Yep.
all of a sudden.
And then it's, like I'm always the victim on their side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're never wrong, like you said.
Yeah. And it's just trying to deal with
I deal
that.
with all that too.
And navigate that. Yeah, honestly, that's one of the reasons we're all friends, is because we all have these
We all-
similar issues.
We have shitty lives.
It's getting better, though.
Yeah.
We'll work through it. I read something somewhere. I can't cite it. Sorry. It was years ago, that says that you don't really enjoy life until your 30s because, like, you're out of debt. Like, you you should be
most
attempting
part,
it at
yeah.
least, but
You're
you're
getting
in
closer.
You're in a better financial position
Yeah.
than you were in your early 20s, and you know you're settled.
Yeah, when you're really fucking around and
Yeah,
blowing all the money because
exactly.
you got your new job, but like student loans are coming and knocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're settled. You're renting a house, or you've bought a house. You have a career. You're not still job hopping. And this is the average American.
Yeah.
Sure.
Of course, because I'm 27 and about to switch jobs. So,
That's all right.
And we don't even want to talk about Russell's job history. But yeah, they say at 30, your life kind of calms down and you can finally be freaking happy.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
if
what-
you had kids in your 20s, they're not babies anymore. Like,
Yeah.
they're
I think a
everything
lot of
managed.
that comes from the fact that you've just had like a decade to kind of figure out the whole adult thing.
Fuck it
Yeah.
all up and fix it.
And, like,
Exactly.
maybe
Yeah.
you don't have it all figured out, but you at least have the basics down at
Yeah.
that point. And I think just having that like really helps out a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're not making your stupid 20s decisions anymore, like
Yeah.
maxing out credit cards
Yeah.
and like, hey, I've already did that. I'm not going to do that again.
Don't
I
need
just
to do
got it
that.
paid
Yeah,
off.
exactly.
I've been paying on this credit card for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm done with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just the knowledge you gain along the way. 30s, it kind of plateaus and you
Yeah.
get to relax. So we're almost there, guys.
Yeah. So
close.
speaking of that, what are some goals that you have for yourself?
Honestly, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And I think that was one of the things that really spiraled my depression early on. Was I had all these like really lofty goals and ideas that I should have with my life. And here recently, I've just kind of learned to let a lot of that go. Like maybe my life doesn't have to be what I thought it could be. Maybe it can just be what I want it to be now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
had to
don't-
do that too.
Like it was learning to let go of some of these big
Expectations.
notions and expectations that I
Yeah.
put on myself And that has been one of the biggest reliefs in the past few months.
I still get into funks where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And I lay in bed and cry because I'm just so lost and confused.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I'm 27.
Yeah.
So like, that's definitely something I'm still working on, is letting go of the expectations I had for my life, especially now that I'm pushing 30 and don't have a house.
But that's also
or
goes back to like
anything.
our children thing. Like we all had this societal pressure put on us at a young age. Like you have to be married by 21 and kids by 25. Like that's what our parents did. So why don't we? Like, my parents owned a house and had 2 kids when they were my age. And like,
I'm still
and then trying to
Yeah.
like live up to that and also comparing yourself to that, because like I don't know how many times I've looked around and been like, there's all these people that are my age or even younger that already have a house and 2 kids and seem like they have everything figured out.
Going on
It's like,
vacations.
what the fuck am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And that's why social media is toxic.
Yeah.
But then, like, you kind of take a step back, and then, like, especially when you get to know some of those people, it's like, oh, no, they're really just as lost as I am.
Yeah.
They're just on a different path.
Or they're super unhappy with where they're at, just
Yeah.
as unhappy as we are. But
Yeah.
we see their posts and think, man, they have it all.
Yeah, they're not going to
And
put their shit on Facebook.
Their
They want
husband
to.
is an alcoholic and abuses them and their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's why. That's
And
why
that's
I
not
think
always the case.
No,
But-
but that's why I think Facebook and Instagram and all of those are toxic, because you do see somebody living their best life when it could all be fake.
It's
Yeah.
just a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Like, how many credit cards
Exactly.
did they max out to go to Jamaica?
Exactly.
Like-
and how long are they going to be paying on that trip? Like, I didn't, but I just got all my debt paid off. I'm not going to go put a trip to Japan on all that.
No.
You know, like, I have almost $2,000 in credit card debt. I'm going to get rid of that and let it lay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, they could have opened up they could have went and got a personal loan and have to pay that back.
Yeah,
Like, you
exactly.
Yeah, as far to go back to your goals question, it's just been trying to calm myself and not necessarily to learn not to compare myself to everybody else. And I don't have to be where society or even where I thought I had to be at. I can just trying to learn to be in the moment and appreciate to live the life right now, as opposed to trying to live life for the future, which is what I was previously trying to do, while also still trying to have some kind of guidance and some kind of general idea with where I want to go with
You
my
still want to
life.
have goals and
small,
yeah.
attainable
Yeah.
goals.
Exactly.
So like I really like what we're doing with like all the drafty stuff, but I'm just kind of like letting it roll and like, you know, see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put a bunch of great expectations into it. I'm just gonna let it happen, and if
Yeah.
it happens, great. If not, I'm having fun along the way, and that's really what matters right now.
And that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
And
have fun and
that's
hang out with
why-
our friends.
Yeah.
That's why it's important.
Yeah.
You know, obviously it's great if it does take off, but you know, that would be a
And we
smaller
encourage
goal.
it to.
I mean, obviously if you listen to this now, you're hopefully a fan.
Yeah. Merch coming soon.
But yeah, so I would say like this is one of my goals. You know, sometime down the line I'd probably like to own my own house. I'd probably like to have kids eventually, but I'm not super eager to rush into any of that, because like I still don't have myself figured out. And I guess that would probably be my most immediate goal, is to like figure myself out before I start trying to do all the other stuff. Is just, you know, get a handle on who I am and what I want to be before I start trying to mold and shape somebody else or put a bunch of money towards a house and set down roots and all that stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right. So, did you ever feel a sigh of relief after explaining yourself or a situation to someone? Just like, man, I feel better for talking to you. This is great.
A little bit. The biggest relief I've gotten lately is with my current job, my actual paying money job. I have a boss that when I was telling him after I first got hired in, I was like, listen, I have depression and this is what I'm dealing with. And it was this mountain of a conversation that I was not looking forward to having, because I had literally gotten fired from my previous job, literally fired because of attendance, because I missed 4 days in 2 months because of my depression. and I got fired because of that. Even though they said, no, it's okay, we're going to work with you. They just called me after work one day and said, don't come in on Monday. And so I had to deal with that. And the job immediately before that, I had to go through this whole thing with like working with their legal department and like FMLA and like trying to set up my depression and like trying to set it up to where I can take time off when I need to, but not get in trouble and get fired. And then eventually they ended up finding this like legal loophole bullshit to where they could lay me off without firing me. And because they got rid of other people too, they could get rid of me. And it didn't seem like they were getting rid of me because I'd missed so many days, even though I know deep down that's why they got rid of me. And like they weren't quite so, like they basically admitted to that so much in my exit interview.
This like was also 3 weeks before our wedding.
Yeah.
Great timing.
Yeah, because like I even asked him, I was like, so you're laying me off. I was like, so if work picks back up, are you going to call me back? They're like, no, we're not going to call you back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, oh, okay, that's what this is really about then. This is just the convenient excuse to get you around the legal bullshit.
Yeah.
And the HR lady was always like, my hands
Exactly.
are tied. My hands are tied. Like, that's all they kept saying. I was like, fuck you, bitch.
So to answer your question,
Yes.
the relief I had was at my current job.
Yes.
After I told my boss I had depression because I had had these awful experiences at my last 2 jobs with the depression causing me to lose them. And I told him, hey, I have depression. I'm going to have to miss work. And I was like, I was ready. I was like, had all my legal stuff to back me up. It's like, you have to give me this at least. You know, here's a doctor's note. Here's all this stuff. And he's like, no, it's okay. I get it. I tried to kill myself in college. And like the moment he said that, I just instantly felt relief.
Yeah.
He turned into a blubbering pile of a human.
And like I definitely teared up a bit, but I didn't like just start openly weeping like that. But it was this huge relief and this huge weight off my shoulders because it's like, oh, he gets it.
He really gets
someone
it.
understands.
This person, my manager, finally understands some of the stuff I'm dealing with. He understands.
That's so lovely.
And he's
And, like,
literally
I love
never
that.
been happier at a job.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've been there for almost a year, and hopefully will continue to be there. You know, at least until things take off here with Drafty. But because I really enjoy working there, and like it's not anything different than I did at the other 2 jobs.
It's
but
just
I
the
felt
atmosphere.
I felt so much more relief because they're so accepting of it. And it's never been an issue. They've never once come to me and been like, hey, you're missing too much work, or hey, you need to do this, or hey, you need to do that. I've been there for a year.
Yeah.
And I've probably worked 3 or 4 full work weeks since I've been there. And they've never once came to me and said anything about me
awesome.
missing work for my depression. And like on average, I'll miss 1 to 2 days a week because of my depression. Like I miss a lot of work because of it. And they've never once like came to me and talked to me or set me down in a hushed room and been like, hey, you're missing too much work.
Yeah.
Or hey, this is an issue. And like, you know, I had a 6-month contract when I started and they renewed it. After missing 1 to 2 days a week for 6 months, they still renewed my contract.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, they're actually okay with this. They're not saying anything. They're actually okay.
Yeah,
This
they're
is
not
a
like,
place-
oh, yeah, it's fine. Let's fire him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the last place.
Like the last place,
Yeah.
because I literally had to deal with that, and I was traumatized because of it. So like having somebody else tell me that brought me relief. And like, you know, talking about stuff on this podcast actually, has brought me some relief. And like
Good.
talking to people in general about it brings me a little bit of relief, but more so talking to other people that understand it. And that's been my biggest thing here lately is just trying to reach out to other people so I can help them feel that same relief. So
But
like
it's nice to be reciprocated too. Like you can't always be the one reaching out.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
hard,
been
too.
the biggest thing I've been trying to struggle with because I keep reaching out to people and say, hey, you know, it's okay if you need to talk to me. And then, you know, I understand why they don't because I didn't want to reach out to people either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
So just letting them know that you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
been
also nice to hear like, yo, I'm here for you too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would say I've heard that a lot, and sometimes I can definitely tell when it's genuine and when it's not.
Yeah, they feel obligated
Because
to.
literally every person I've told that I've had depression has been like, "Oh, well, if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you." Literally every single person I've told has said that.
Yeah.
But they're not all. You wouldn't.
No.
They wouldn't all talk to you.
Yeah.
No.
Like one of them was like my contract manager at work was like, "Oh, if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you." It's like, I'm not going to talk to you. I talk to you once a month, if that. Like for work. You know? Like I'm
By
not
the way,
gonna
I'm also real sad.
tell you all my deep-seated personal issues,
Yeah.
you know? Like it's hard enough to talk to my friends about that kind of stuff, let alone you.
Yeah.
Um
That is kind of silly.
But it is nice when like occasionally people reach out to me and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" So like one thing the other day, we had a party here, and I haven't talked to you about this. I'm telling you now.
Okay,
so
great.
this is gonna be great. We had a party here at the Drafty, and like the people was just getting too much for me, and I just had to step outside for a minute. And you came outside and you just sat with me for a little bit, and we just sat outside and smoked a cigarette.
Yeah.
And like that meant the world to me.
Aw.
That we just sat out there, and it was just like, okay, I'm not alone, but I'm not with a bunch of people, and it's like it's just me and my friend Cassie, and we're just hanging out here. And this is it really helped to calm me down and bring me back.
Good.
And then like Sara came out a little while later, and then she helped calm me down a little bit too. And it was like very shortly after you both came out and like sat down and talked to me that I came back in.
And I think I tried. I knew there was something wrong, and I was just like, "You okay?" And you said, "Yep." And then I just let you sit there.
Yep.
Because I'm like, "He's okay.
Yep.
I ain't gonna bug him then,
Yep.
Yeah, and
or
like
pry or anything. I
and we
just
didn't
wanted
really-
some nicotine, to be honest."
Yeah, but it really meant a lot that you just
Good.
kind of sat there with me, even though we didn't talk much or really say anything. It was just like, this is better.
Yeah.
It was nice to have that
It's
calming.
good to have your
presence.
people around you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have my
And you
friends.
did kind of turn around, so
Yeah.
because I was like, "There's something wrong with Cory."
Yeah.
And then you came back, and you were fine and social, and
Yeah.
you were like, "Okay, I like these people."
Sometimes you just need a minute.
Remember. I know. I sit in my car every day before walking in the house.
Yeah. For 45 minutes
Yep.
before your birthday party.
I didn't know. I didn't know.
That was still fun.
I just had to decompress.
So, with that being said, there is a quote, and it says, "I don't need your advice. I'd rather you just sit and listen." That's something that obviously resonates with you then, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely something I've had to work on for myself because I'm the first person to give people advice. As soon as they like start telling me what's wrong, I'm like, "Oh, well, you should probably do this and do this and do this." And it's not coming from a place where I feel like I'm
You're
better than them or
yeah.
I know everything. It's like me genuinely trying to help people.
Yeah.
I'm really
And-
bad with unsolicited advice.
Yeah. And it's just
like,
trying to
listen.
realize, maybe they just need somebody to talk to. They just need an ear to listen.
That's
Yeah.
me with him 95% of the time. I come home and I like just bitch about work or something, and he's like offering up solutions, and I was like, no. I just want to be irrational and yell at you for
Yeah.
a couple of minutes. That's all I need. I don't need a solution. Just let it happen.
I have to do that with Russell. I'm like, "Stop trying to fix everything. Just let me bitch."
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to tell people that.
Yeah.
Like you telling me that means like it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I just immediately stop and I just
Yeah.
start listening. I'm like, yeah, that
Continue.
sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were a bitch. That's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I just want a hype man.
Yeah.
I just want someone to be like, "Yeah, fuck
Exactly
them."
what I was going to say. He turns into my hype man as soon as I'm like, nope, that's not today. Today we're just mad at them. And he's like, yeah, we hate Becky. Damn Becky. I was like, yeah.
And I've been trying to pick up on your cues more when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Because I realize that most of the time you that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time you've already tried to solve the problem yourself. You just need something to bitch, someplace to vent.
Yeah, and I've tried to get better, especially with you and my little sister. I'm really bad about just spewing things that this is how you fix it. So
Yeah.
then I think the last time something was wrong, I was like, "May I give you advice?"
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm like, maybe she doesn't want to hear me bitch at her. Maybe she just wants to bitch. So
Yeah,
then
she
I
literally
was like,
goes,
"May I give you advice?"
would you like a solution? And I was like, bring it on. She's like, okay. And then proceeded to
Yeah,
tell me.
because then I was like, maybe Sara doesn't like that I always say, "Yeah, fuck
Oh,
that
no.
person. Don't ever talk to them again."
No, yeah, I
maybe
need
she
that in
just
my
wants
life.
to bitch. So,
But then
I'm
there's
trying to
sometimes-
be more aware.
When I do bitch and I'm like, hello, like, what are we doing about this?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I thought this was one of those where you're just
I thought
going
we
to
were
yell
just
at
venting.
me. Yeah.
I thought you were just yelling at me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Like, no, help me with Becky. What do I do? Sorry if you're Becky and listening. I really don't hate you. I just thought of a name.
This is generic.
Yeah.
We hate your good hair, actually.
Yeah. Becky with the good hair. I did it.
Sarah's like, I probably did it.
Probably did it. Oh, Lord. So, I came across this article, and it says 7 things you're supposed to ask someone with mental health issues.
Oh, okay.
Well, most depression.
Sure.
So, see if you would like these to be asked
Okay.
to you. What helped you the last time you were depressed like this? Just to kind of get you thinking and get you out of the situation.
Okay. It's not a bad question. For
Good
me, specifically, it's always different.
Yeah.
It probably should be.
So,
Yeah.
this question honestly resonated with me, and it was because he always feels like he's tackling this on his own. Like it's his health, it's his, and I attack it as a team. Like we're in this together. Like his demons are my demons, regardless of the situation. Like I attack it head on. Like we are gonna conquer this.
Which some of that is, it's not because I don't feel like we're a team. It's just because I don't want to burden you with my demons.
Exactly.
And it's like I don't ever want to put that burden on anybody else.
Well, she signed the marriage certificate,
Right.
so
And like
it ain't a
it's-
burden.
Yeah.
It's trying to rationalize that in my head. It's like she's not, she's trying to help me. She's trying to help saddle this burden with me. And,
Yeah.
But it's like at the same time, I've got the demons saying like, you're gonna put her with too much, and then she's just gonna leave you. And it's the same thing with like trying to tell your friends, like, hey, I have this, because sometimes you don't want to tell them because it's like, well, I don't want to make them feel sad like I feel sad.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to balance that, like, hey, they're your friends, they want to help you with burdening other people with your issues.
Yeah.
Trying to balance that in your head and rationalize it. Sorry to interrupt your question.
No, you're good. But that's a lot of time we'll just be laying there at night, and I'll be like, listen, this is what's happening. Tell him my situation. Like, I feel like this is too much for me and stuff like that. And he'll be like, well, I haven't told you all of my stuff because I feel like it's too much. And then we just like word vomit and tell everybody everything. And then we feel better because we know, like, even though he struggles with it, he still wants to know my problems and vice versa. And like, you can't hide stuff from your significant other or like your close friends. I feel like you should lean on them even more. And like, if they are your true friends, they'll tell you like, listen, I don't, and that was this. Okay, hold on. Let me finish this. Sorry. Word vomit.
ahead of herself.
I am. But they'll tell you, like, I can't do this today. Like, I'm not in a good mental capacity of my own. And that was another thing was ask your person you're talking to, like, do you have the headspace to deal with this today? Like, are you in a bad place? Like, if I add to this, is this going to make you worse? And I thought that was a good question to ask. Like, do you have the mental capacity to deal with this bullshit I'm about to throw at you?
Yeah, and to go along with that, like, also have an agreement with your friends that they don't have to lie to you if they don't want to hang out. Just be honest, because that's what me and Sarah do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've both pretty much agreed. I could text her and be like, hey, it's 4:00 and I haven't showered yet and I don't want to go, and she can't be mad at it. And same for me.
Yeah.
So we kind of have that agreement between us two that if we just don't feel like it, it's fine. You get a pass.
Yeah.
Because we both have anxiety and depression, and sometimes we just don't feel like it.
Yeah,
So,
but we can literally text each other and be like, listen, I haven't showered in 3 days, and it's probably going to be 3 more, so, like, it's probably not going to happen today.
yeah. So I think that open line of communication with your friends is a good thing to have, too.
Yeah, instead of trying to make up an excuse, because then you have to be like, well, fuck, what did I tell her that I'm doing that I have to remember that I did, and be like, oh, how was ice skating with your nephew? Like,
I did. Oh,
yeah, I did that last week, because that's why we didn't hang out. Yeah, it was great.
It's just too much. Just be honest with them.
Just tell them.
They'll
Like,
appreciate it more,
It's
too.
something that like
Yeah.
Sarah and I are even working on in our relationship, because she does have her anxiety and I have my depression, and we run into that all the time of I don't want to make her worse because I'm bad.
yeah, I don't want to be a trigger for the other person.
Yeah, and we're still working on it, but it's something we have to try to deal with, and
It's a work in progress, but I think we're doing good.
we're working on it.
That's all life is just working
Trial
on
and error.
yourself. Yeah.
So, another question is, what's the best way for me to help you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you need from me?
That's a
what
good
do you
question.
need
I
right
thought
now?
so, too.
That is
Yeah.
a very good question.
Yeah. So, if you do take medication, how are you doing with your medications? Are you feeling a difference? Do we need to talk to your doctor? That type of thing.
Oh, that's good,
If
too.
you're in the medication. Because I know that's a lot of thing. Like, he had a really adverse reaction to one of the medications he was on, which made it even worse. So,
Because depression medicine can cause suicidal thoughts.
which is
'cause that
fucking
makes
stupid.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had some that made it worse. I had some that just made me feel nothing, which
Yeah.
also made it worse.
Yeah.
And
You
then-
can't even be happy.
Then there was some that just didn't affect me at all. So like
Yeah.
that's definitely a question. It's like, hey, are you still on them? Do you need to stop on them? Do you need to talk to your doctor about it? Do
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah,
switch?
because some
And-
people that don't have experience with it will just be like, well, this is how I have to feel now to not be sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that was another thing is like if you have a friend that does suffer from depression and then all of a sudden they're just happy-go-lucky and buying people gifts and stuff like that.
ask them if they're okay.
Yeah, because sometimes I
That's
read
really
an
when it gets
article,
worse,
yeah,
yeah.
like they're coming to terms with like my suffering is going to be over soon, so let's make the most of it while I can, and then
Yeah, it
you
gets
wake
better
up to
before
a
it
text.
gets worse.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
they had already made the plan to kill themselves.
They're at
and they're
peace.
like, oh, okay, now I have the relief because I only have to deal with this for another week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, that's when they start trying to.
Yeah. Just because they're happy doesn't mean they're okay still.
Exactly. And like we all have depressive episodes and stuff like that, and there are times where you can just be normal, quote unquote, for a while, but like I don't know, just
I
always
think-
check in on your friends.
I think the hardest part about that is you're just so excited to see this person that's been sad for so long
Be
to be
happy.
happy, and you don't want to think the worst.
You don't want to kill their
And
vibe.
you're like, I don't want to bring him back down. I'm afraid to make him worse by mentioning
Yeah,
it.
you don't
That
want
is
to make
true.
them think about it.
But sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
You have to ask them, and it's better to ask them
Than
and
them
risk making them sad again
Yeah.
than to not, and then potentially kill themselves.
Yeah. And then another one was who can we help or who can we call to help us through the situation? Like any professional numbers or anything that you might need.
Yeah, or if you don't feel equipped enough to help them yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good
Should
one.
I call your mom?
Yeah, exactly.
Not
Like,
you
do we need your
specifically.
grandma?
No,
do we
yeah,
need
but
your
I've
sister?
definitely
Do
had
you
friends that I've had to call. Like, I had a friend at my house one night that like had a gun in his hand and was going to kill
need
himself.
in our guest bedroom?
We had to tackle him, pin him to a bed, and then we called his parents.
Yeah.
To come save him. And after that, he got into therapy, got into counseling, and he completely turned his life around.
Yeah. Huge
That's
But
difference.
I mean, sometimes you have to realize that you're not the best person to help this person.
Yeah. And that's another thing is like know your limits. Like you're not a professional unless you are. But like don't be telling people like, well, you need to do this or you need to do this. Like you can encourage them to seek help, but don't like spoon feed them what they need to do either.
Yeah.
Because you aren't an expert. Like, yeah, you deal with it, but I don't know everything about depression and anxiety.
Right.
And it may just be more beneficial to just talk to them and say, this is what I do. Because
Yeah.
they could be like, no, that won't work for me.
Like you're similar enough to hang out, so you
Yeah.
probably have some similar
Yeah, don't
interests
always
and
try to be a
stuff.
therapist. Sometimes
Yeah.
just be their friend.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, yeah, always like be there for them. Don't just drop them because things are hard. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it. Depression is messy and anxiety is messy, but you just always need to be there for your peers because, I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot, you would want people too.
Yeah.
It's rough all around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great to have it, and it's not great to not have it and be around people that do. Like,
Yeah, because you don't understand it.
yeah. It's hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, for sure.
Pun intended. Just kidding. But yeah, mental illness is a very real thing, and it's a bitch to deal with. And thank you for talking openly about it. We appreciate that.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm glad you guys had me on here to talk about this.
Me
Yeah.
too.
We needed a male perspective on it too, because we always get the man up and toxic masculinity like you're talking about. And
It's just the worst.
just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean that you're not any less of a man. Like, it doesn't.
or any
Thank
less
you.
valid as a person.
Yeah.
You can go chop wood sad.
Yeah, exactly. Go
So-
play some basketball with your boys and be depressed. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Hidden disease and all that.
Or even don't do that. Go do the stuff that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to go do manly stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You want to go get a fucking pedicure? Get a pedicure.
Or go watch anime with Cory.
I've
Yeah.
gotten a pedicure. Pedicures are nice.
I was giving them to you.
I like
nice.
pedicures.
They're nice.
All right. Well, Cory, do you have any closing advice for our listeners that may be having a hard time?
I would just, reiterate all the things I've said previously, and don't be afraid to get help.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to talk to people about it. Don't be afraid to talk to your friends, because the more people talk about, what they're dealing with and what they're going through, the less of a stigma there will be on it altogether, and the more we'll all be able to get help.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
maybe therapy will become cheaper if there's more people needing it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, yeah. You know, the more people that have it, the more there's going to be people
A
trying
need.
to
A
find a
demand
solution.
for it.
Yeah.
You know, so like if it continues to be this hidden disease that nobody talks about, then we're never going to get the help we need.
I agree.
And that's what, when I first came out with anxiety and stuff, a family member, who I will not mention, told me, why would you put that stuff on Facebook? Why would you let people know that there's something wrong with you? Like, why would you do that? And I was like, because of people like you. And literally just what I told
So
them.
then people can know there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Like, I mean,
Who cares?
it's no different than breast cancer or a broken leg or something else like that. It's an internal organ, the most important organ in your whole body.
Yeah.
And there's a chemical imbalance, and that's
Or
honestly
some sort
why.
of trauma
Yeah.
or something that you need to work through and deal with.
Yeah.
yeah.
And unfortunately, you're always going to have people like that,
Mm-hmm.
but you just kind of have to wade through it to find the people that you really are important to your life
Mm-hmm.
and the people that you really want.
Yeah. And that's what, like, I just decided right then and there, like, I'll never be quiet about this. Like, I don't want people to feel ashamed about this. It's not something you should be ashamed of. Don't ever feel like a failure, even though
Yeah.
I did when I first
Because like none of us
came
asked
out.
for this.
Yeah. No.
Like it's just a thing that happened to us.
Yeah.
It's just the same as it happens to anybody else.
Yep. And we all need to work through it together.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So be sure to check out our other podcasts. DQP does. They do movie reviews. Cory already plugged his Drafty Tunes.
Drafty Tunes, animation podcast. It's not as sad as this podcast.
Right.
Typically, sometimes it is. Usually, it's not.
If we do Full Metal, it might be.
And then we have Crimson Ring No DQ. And they talk about wrestling and other ridiculous things. It is the most insane podcast on our network. And that's all we got.
We've also got some other stuff in the works, so
Yes.
stay tuned.
Yeah.
Definitely keep an eye out on things to come.
Woo woo.
We got a bunch of stuff that we're really excited that we can't really talk about yet, but we're
We
super
got a
excited.
secret.
And we're hoping everybody sticks around for it.
Yeah. We'll be worth the wait, I promise.
Keep loving us. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.